The merchant vessel was found listing heavily in the open Pacific, drifting 600 miles completely off course, but she had not sunk. Because of 640 cubic feet of cork lining packed into her hull, the MV Joyita was structurally incapable of sinking, yet every single person aboard had vanished. Why would 25 experienced sailors and passengers willingly abandon a ship that could not sink? On October 3rd, 1955, the Joyita prepared to depart Apia, Samoa. Her destination was the Tokelau Islands, a routine trading run spanning roughly 270 miles of open ocean, under the command of Thomas Dusty Miller, an experienced mariner. She carried 16 crew and 9 passengers. Among them was a government doctor traveling urgently to perform a scheduled amputation on the islands. But why was a vessel carrying such a critical medical passenger delayed from leaving port for an entire day? The Joyita was failing before she even untied her lines. Her port engine clutch was completely broken, forcing Captain Miller to attempt the 2-day voyage relying entirely on a single working engine. She finally departed Apia on the morning of October 3rd. With only the starboard engine functioning, her speed was crippled, meaning the journey would take far longer than the usual 48 hours. By October 5th, the Joyita was scheduled to arrive at the Tokelau port. The dock remained empty. No distress signal was ever broadcast over the regional frequencies. Why wasn't a massive search and rescue operation launched the moment the ship failed to appear? Because port authorities knew about the cork lining. Even if she suffered a catastrophic hull breach, she would remain afloat as a drift raft. Assuming the crew was safe but stranded, the Royal New Zealand Air Force did not begin their aerial search until October 6th. Over the next 6 days, military flying boats covered roughly 100,000 square miles of ocean. They found no wreckage, no debris field, and absolutely no trace of the Joyita. The official search was eventually called off. For 5 full weeks, 25 men, women, and children were simply erased from the Pacific. How does a 69-foot unsinkable ship stay hidden for over a month? By drifting. On November 10th, a trading vessel called the Tuvalu finally spotted her. She was floating 600 miles off her plotted course, waterlogged and heavily listing to her port side. The captain of the Tuvalu sounded his horn. When no one answered, a boarding party crossed over to the slanted deck. They found seawater washing through the lower cabins and absolutely no one aboard. If the vessel was floating exactly as engineered, where were the 25 passengers? They had evacuated. The boarding party immediately noted that all 3 of the Joyita's Kali life rafts, along with her wooden dinghy, were completely gone. Inside the wheelhouse, they discovered the radio was switched on and actively tuned to the International Marine Distress Channel. Someone had desperately tried to call for help. Why did the regional shore stations never receive a single transmission from that open line? A hidden wiring fault. The connection between the radio and the aerial mast had been severed, then mistakenly painted over during earlier maintenance. Whoever was sending the distress call was essentially broadcasting to a dead room. But the most unsettling discovery lay abandoned right above the flooded engine room. The government doctor's canvas medical bag had been ripped open, surrounded by discarded bandages stained with blood. What exact sequence of events drove an experienced captain to abandon an unsinkable ship in the dark. A silent, creeping flood. When investigators finally towed the Joyita back to port, they traced the disaster to a single corroded cooling pipe beneath the floorboards. It had fractured, steadily pumping raw ocean water into the bilge. The crew attempted to pump the water out, but the bilge pumps had not been fitted with proper strainers. They quickly clogged with debris and failed, allowing the rising water to short out the single working engine. Why did the captain, who knew the vessel was literally unsinkable, authorize a catastrophic evacuation in the dark? The official commission of inquiry concluded that he didn't. The open medical bag and bloodied bandages on deck heavily suggest Captain Miller was severely injured or killed during the chaotic early stages of the flooding.
Without their experienced commander, panic took over. To the terrified passengers and remaining crew, the dead, listing ship with water washing through the cabins felt like a coffin rapidly dragging them under. But if 24 people abandoned the vessel, where did the life rafts go? They were swallowed by the vastness of the Pacific. The Kali life rafts were small, open, and entirely unequipped for long-term survival. Once they detached from the main vessel, they were at the mercy of immense, unpredictable ocean currents. The ultimate tragedy of the Joyita is one of terrible irony. Had the terrified passengers simply remained on the flooded deck of their crippled ship, the structural insulation would have kept them alive. Instead, they fled into the deep. Yet despite the massive military search, why hasn't a single piece of those life rafts ever washed ashore? The sheer scale of the environment erased them. The open ocean is notoriously unforgiving, and lightweight canvas rafts break apart easily in heavy weather, leaving no debris field substantial enough for search planes to spot. But the exact nature of the blood found on the deck, and whether Captain Miller was attacked by a panicked crewman or simply injured by loose rigging during the flood, remains a forensic anomaly that the physical evidence cannot definitively answer. After analyzing the waterlogged hull and the broken radio, what did the official court finally conclude? In April of 1956, an official commission of inquiry convened in Apia. They definitively concluded that the Joyita was technically unseaworthy due to the fractured cooling pipe, but they could not definitively explain why the terrified crew abandoned a vessel that was structurally incapable of sinking. The inquiry documented the severed radio wire and the blood-stained bandages, but with no witnesses, they could not legally verify if a mutiny, an accident, or a violent altercation had injured the captain. They could only record the physical remnants of the panic. With no bodies recovered and no survivors to testify, how does a legal tribunal close a disappearance of this magnitude? They are forced to close it without answers. The final report of the commission stated that the loss of all 25 souls was inexplicable on the evidence submitted, and the case remains officially unsolved. To this day, not a single trace of the missing has ever been found. As for the Joyita herself, she was salvaged, repaired, and sold to a new owner, but mariners are a superstitious kind, and finding a crew willing to board a vessel where 25 people had vanished proved incredibly difficult. Did the unsinkable ship ever manage to complete another successful voyage? Rarely. She suffered a series of subsequent groundings and mechanical failures, eventually earning a reputation as a cursed ship. She was ultimately beached in the 1960s, stripped of her fittings, to rot away on a quiet island shore. The tragedy of the Joyita forces a disturbing realization about maritime survival. The vessel was engineered to withstand the absolute worst the Pacific could offer, and physically, the cork insulation did exactly what it was designed to do. But what good is an unsinkable ship when the human mind fractures in the dark? The engineering failed because the passengers couldn't see it. In the pitch darkness, with the engine dead and seawater rushing over their boots, the logical knowledge of the ship's cork insulation was entirely erased by the primal, immediate terror of sinking. They abandoned the one structure capable of saving them, stepping off a floating sanctuary and directly into the abyss. A catastrophic human error born from blind panic, which the Pacific Ocean simply swallowed whole, leaving behind nothing but a drifting, waterlogged shell and an unanswered question.